Well, hello, and welcome to episode 3 of the Jay's Cultural Arts Corner podcast. I'm John Wilson, Director of Cultural Arts at the Jewish Community Center of St. Louis, and today I'm coming to you, as I have before, from the beautiful studios at Cobalt Communications here in Fenton, Missouri. So today's podcast is about the Jewish Film Festival, and it is a ranking of and reaction to all 14 films. Now, I think where I would like to start is just with an overall thank you. Thank you to everyone who participated in this year's festival. We had 700 seats used over these 5 days, and we garnered so much positive feedback from all of you about not being virtual anymore, coming out of our 3-year hibernation and coming together again in community. So that was really, really wonderful. We learned a lot, too, because we also had some very, I think, constructive feedback about what we could do to make the festival grow and to make it even better for next year. So thank you for that. I would say that the one constant out of all 14 films is that the festival achieved its mission to bring us together as a community, to investigate universal themes connected to the human experience, and all through our Jewish cultural lens. And so I just found it just invigorating, all of the conversations I was having with so many of you after each film. It was just such a great way to connect. And that would be my takeaway, is just how much connection we all shared with one another by watching films and just using cinema as a means of connection. I really loved that. And by the way, I watched all 14 films, and I honestly think something like happened in the neurochemistry of my brain. That was a physical, emotional, and mental travail at times. Now, interesting side note, I did not have a single piece of popcorn or a soda with me during any of those 14 films, and I did a little math, and had I gotten my normal medium popcorn, medium soda with each of these films, I would have spent $252 on snacks. That's a fun fact. Well, all right. Well, let's get to the lightning round ranking and reactions. And I'll just start with this. There were really only 2 films that I didn't quite connect with, so they're ranked, 14 and 13. But the remaining 12 films I thought were fantastic. I thought our committee did an amazing job curating this festival. And so the rankings from 12 to 1 are really separated just by, nuance, preference. They were all really good. In fact, you know what? I'll make this analogy. If a Major League Baseball player went 12 of 14 during a week of games, his batting average would be .857. That's astronomical. That is unheard of. So I would say very clearly, the Jewish Film Festival of 2023 hit a home run. All right. Well, let's get to these rankings and reactions. Coming in at number 14 was 1618. Now, I will give the film this. It had beautiful cinema photography. I just think maybe the subject matter, it may have been a better documentary because the topic was interesting. I think that the actors, they memorized their lines really well. Coming in at number 13, The Jews and the Blues. Now, what I really liked seeing on this one was the Hebrew Music Museum. I thought that place was fascinating, and I really loved meeting all these different ethnic Jews within this region and how they connected with music, how sometimes they used music in worship, and just what the blues meant to them in their Jewish experience. Honestly, I think my biggest problem was with the documentarian himself. He just had a vibe. I don't know. He had a vibe, and I didn't quite connect with it, which is why I ranked it as low as I did. All right, coming in at number 12, Karaoke. Now, okay, honestly, I thought I would rank this film even higher. But something has to fill the number 12 slot. But here's what I liked. The idea that a writer and a director chose to focus on a 46-year-old marriage that was looking to rekindle passion and romance and really discover each other again. Like, that is a very worthy story to be told. I'm sure it is not uncommon for marriages approaching 50 years to have so many of the struggles that this couple had. And so I thought it was really special that this story was being told. So I thought it was really, really fun. It was humorous. It was quirky. It was a little uncomfortable, honestly, at times. And maybe that's why it ended up at number 12. All right. The Levees of Monticello comes in at number 11. Now, this film was gorgeously shot, and the Monticello area in that part of Virginia in the fall and in the spring just is a burst of color onto the screen, and it's really, really beautiful. Plus, it's chocked full of history and actually conflict that I didn't know surrounded Monticello and surrounded Jefferson and the Levees and those that were taking care of this, one of our original founders' homes, taking care of that property. So it was really, really interesting, and I really liked it. Coming in at number 10 was Shakten. Now, I wanted to rank this higher, but I was conflicted. It's a disturbing moral. It seems to relish or glorify the idea of revenge. And at the same time, it does clearly tell us that immoral actions cause weeds in the garden of our minds that are very, very hard to pull. But it's messy. It's not a clear moral. It's difficult and it's a bit disturbing, but very well done. Number 9, A Tree of Life, the Pittsburgh synagogue shooting. This was extremely well done. And you cannot help but have an empathy for just the precious victims and the families and friends that remain in mourning. You really want to, and you celebrate the Muslim community that came along beside them physically and financially to help them carry that burden. It's a beautiful story of community, but you're also left like really angry and disgusted that this kind of brutal, murderous anti-Semitism could still exist this far into the 21st century. It doesn't leave you with a lot of hope about the state of affairs culturally in the country. The hope comes from the strength of spirit in those that are left behind and those that lost their life. It's a very good film. All right, number 8, Bernstein's Wall. What I learned most about this film is that I have been mispronouncing Leonard's last name for a number of decades. I always thought it was Leonard Bernstein. It's Leonard Bernstein. And that was embarrassing to know that I had that wrong that whole time. My favorite parts were the growth of his passion and his understanding for composing and conducting, and the profile of him as just a fierce artist, knowing what he wanted and going after it, which is the hallmark of most of our artistic elites, quite honestly. All right, coming in at number 7, Hallelujah, Leonard Cohen, A Journey, a Song. Now, this film gave us the ability to watch one person's lifelong journey towards authenticity. Being authentic, it's kind of an overused idea right now. But the truest sense of what it means to be authentic, I think, was captured beautifully by Leonard Cohen. What he strived to do with his poetry, what he strived to do with his music, what he strived to do as a performer, and the fact that he overcame just a horrific financial downfall from his manager and resurrected his performance, his live performance career, and continued to produce more albums after that and continued to perform live right up until he was like 75 years old, was amazing and just showed such a beautiful strength of his character. And he just never really let anything sidetrack him or get him down. He'd get sideswiped and he'd just be like, "Oh, okay, my life just got ruined, but I'm gonna get back up on my feet and keep going." And it was really, really encouraging and quite insightful in many different moments. Number 6, Fiddler's Journey to the Big Screen. Norman Jewison. The director of Fiddler on the Roof just comes across as one of the most just empathetic artists who just cared so deeply about telling this story for a universal audience. It's emblematic, I think, of what we all try to do as artists. And I love learning about the backstories of the actors and the designers and those artists that were involved, and just some of the decisions that got made in real time while shooting the film. So really, really fascinating biography of how that film came to be. All right, now the next 3 films were all, I think, just unexpected and delightful surprises for me. Based on these films' descriptions and trailers, I did not expect these 3 to rank as high as they did. So what am I talking about? Okay, well, let's jump in. Number 5, America. This film was slow. It took its time. It invested in the characters and the through line of their conflicts within the plot in just such a wonderful way. It has an amazing payoff at the end, and it's filled with tragedy and healing and redemption and relational restoration. It's a beautiful film, and a lot of people wiping their eyes at the end of this. I think many of us in the theater were surprised at how strong this film was. All right, number 4, I Am Here. This documentary needs to be shown in every high school and college history course. It is the most powerful documentary about a current Holocaust survivor, hands down. It is incredibly disturbing. I saw footage of that era that I have never seen before. And then Ella Blumenthal's remembrances of what it was like to be in 3 different concentration camps are all animated, and the animation is disturbing. And the whole thing is so well done. But you know what? What's really beautiful about this film is that your takeaway isn't how disturbing this was in our global history. You're left with the strength of the human spirit, and you're left with the will to live, and you're left with the will to love. And Ella Blumenthal is a treasure, and it's so good. It's so good. Number 3, March '68. Now, this may have been the biggest surprise film of the festival for me. I was really kind of flummoxed that there was still an expulsion of Jews happening in Poland as late as 1968. Like, that kind of blew my mind to learn more of that history. But it was watching this through this kind of star-crossed lovers, Romeo and Juliet lens that made the heartbreak really, really palpable. because the whole story's tragedy is centered around young romance. It was also the only film that was left unresolved. I mean, at the end, you're watching the female protagonist being separated as she stands on a train that's just moving into the horizon away from the male protagonist. And like, you don't know if they're ever going to see each other again. You just know, well, she has to leave and there's nothing he can do about it. So there's this tension at the end that just leaves you really, really, you're just reeling from that emotionally. So it was beautifully acted. It was tragic. It was powerful. It was romantic. It was really well done. All right, number 2. There's only 2 left. So what's it going to be? If you remember our lineup, you might be wondering, where's he leaning? Because this is going to reveal what I thought about the number 1 film. So the number 2 film for me was Farewell, Mr. Hoffman. You know, Hoffman, it might as well be in a virtual tie with the number 1 film. It was just such a fantastic way for us to kick off our festival. The movie had amazing suspense, had these great twists in the plot and character development, and just a beautiful account of humility and moral fortitude, which I just loved about the film. The journey of the antagonist from this guy who's kind of meek and powerless to the corruption that comes as he gains influence and power was a really good lesson in the darkness of the human condition. The film was just excellent, and it had both I guess I would call it a shocking and also joyful resolution. It was great. And everyone walking out of that film was like jazzed, just all right, the festival has started, let's go. It was just a great way to kick it off. All right, but this does bring me to what I think was the number 1 film of this year's festival. It is Persian Lessons. The premise alone made this film phenomenal. To think that a Jewish prisoner in a concentration camp could pretend to be Persian and then teach Farsi to the commandant over the kitchen, who, by the way, wants to open up a German restaurant in Iran after the war, without knowing a lick of Farsi, like that's an incredible plot. This person had to make up thousands of words and remember the definitions to every imaginary word he was making up and be able to teach them and remember them to this person that held his life in his hands. So the detail with how the main character made up words just based on like the partial names of those in the camps that this character comes into contact with, and then he'll use like a partial sound of their name, and then he'll come up with a character trait, or he will assign that name kind of a random noun that just somehow speaks to him based on who stands before him. So that whole process was just like stunning in psychological detail. And how this practice ended up being used at the end of the film was just devastatingly wonderful. I won't give it away. You just have to watch it. It's so powerful. It's like for me, it was like immediate tears in my eyes when I realized what all that work actually accomplished once he was liberated. It is a powerful, powerful moment. Also, yes, we do get to see the comeuppance of the lead antagonist, and that just felt good. It was a really good film. It was my favorite. Well, there you have it. This was a fantastic curation of a film festival, which I really want to again thank our committee for. And you know what? We are committed to making Festival 2024 even better. We already have ideas based on your feedback of things that we're going to do differently and things that we're going to re-engage with just to make next year even better. I know it's like a year away, and I'm already like super excited to gather together and do this again. All right. You know, I'd say if I was just going to end this now, I think part of what I'm excited about doing when we come together again next year is just I truly believe that we can use cinema to gather as a community and really just keep asking the question. I say it almost every podcast so far. Okay, granted, 3 episodes, but like, what does it mean to be human? I think it's just such an important thing to talk about. So anyway, all right, so episode 4 is going to be an interview with Hannah Dinkle. She is our literary manager, and she is in charge of the Jewish Book Festival, the used book sale, and basically everything that is connected to any kind of book event that we do at the J. So that's going to be a really entertaining and very fun conversation. So please join me for that. Until then, I hope that you will go see a play, read a book, watch a film, and I'll see you at the J.